All right, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. This is Do Hard Things Tech View. I'm your host, Paul Delaria, Partner Solution Architect at AWS. And just a reminder, Do Hard Things Tech View is an opportunity for people like me to inspire, inform, and immerse you in the technology trends around AWS. Today, I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to CleanSlate and David Poindexter from CleanSlate. David, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for having me on. I'm pretty excited to share this with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have to say too. It's been really fun learning a little bit about CleanSlate and the work that you guys have done with AWS and some of the cool technology you guys have built on for our customers. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity to share just an overall great technical deep dive. Before we get into that, maybe you could do me a favor. I always like to ask our participants, tell me a little bit about you. How'd you get here, and how'd you get to where you're at, and with CleanSlate?
Yeah, I'll be real quick with that. So I was a truck driver and made a career switch. Went back to school, got started, spent many years from custom app dev, and as a app dev person I wanted to ship things, so I started into the CI/CD world, and then you got to figure out where do you ship it, and so AWS was my landing spot. So I've been working for over 15 years in all three spaces.
That's awesome. Well, on behalf of everybody at AWS, thanks for building on behalf of our customers. They really appreciate it, and I know you got a great story to tell here. Now, we talked a little bit beforehand, but it sounds like you spent some time at CleanSlate. Tell us a little bit about what CleanSlate does and what you guys are after.
Yeah, so CleanSlate Technology Group, we're based in Indianapolis. We service the Midwest and beyond. Started off as, a normal consultancy doing a lot of hardware and software license type sales, and started a whole consultancy, and we knew that the cloud was the future. So I was brought onto CleanSlate to help build our entire technical expertise around AWS specifically. We've grown since then, and now we are the Central Indiana's only AWS advanced partner, and we continue to grow with more and more competencies on the way. Very skilled staff. It's been the time of my life.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can appreciate how technical you have to be to learn everything at AWS. It's constantly changing and growing and innovating.
Certainly.
So, when we were talking about this and I was researching our problem here, I assume that once you move a workload, you make the Herculean effort to get a workload onto AWS, you've kind of achieved nirvana. But from what you're telling me, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I found is that AWS is a great landing spot for either existing workloads to alleviate current problems, or a great way to get started testing out a hypothesis. Will this thing even work? Do people even want this? Can we even do this? And what's great with this story is the customer found a new problem. Yeah, people do
Yeah.
want this. Now what?
Yeah. Tell me more. What type of customer were you working with on this that kind of experimented on AWS and uncovered a new solution?
Yeah, sure. So this was a higher education and finance customer. So they specialize in offering income share agreements, and they partner with universities, schools, and all of that stuff is financial, and it's based against what are your other options. And they wanted to be responsible and provide people a way to say, hey, is this right for me? Well, there's a lot of factors into is it right for you? Your major, your school, your university specific programs, and you want to compare and contrast and do a comparison. So they wrote a tool, and turns out that it actually worked. And more schools in that university, and then more and more universities said, well, we're special too. We want this tool as well. Now we've got some problems that are good problems. But the best part is, if this idea didn't even catch on, no big deal. Turn it off, walk away.
Right, fail fast approach
Absolutely.
to application development. Being the father of a 15-year-old who's just starting his journey into trying to decide what he wants to do, where he wants to go to school, and a 17-year-old who's taking his ACTs next week. I can understand the complexity and the choice, paradigm that he finds himself in. So this is right up my
Absolutely.
alley.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more, about what this customer built. Do
Yeah.
you have any kind of architecture
Yeah. Let me,
diagrams or?
yeah, absolutely. Let me share the screen real quick, and then we'll kind of briefly go through sort of what they were facing. Let me know if you could see this. Let's see. There we go. Should have a
Bam.
basic high level architecture of what they built as their proof of concept that then ran into a very good problem. So they're taking global traffic in from the internet. This is unauthenticated because it's basically just embed this in your university website and Route 53 resolving the DNS through a VPC to an EC2 instance running. The EC2 instance was running Nginx with Let's Encrypt for SSL, as one should do, and a Django application that was just kind of, the app. And the data that it was storing and pulling from to do these computations and sorting and give the right answers was all stored on an attached EBS volume. Now, for those of you out there that may not be aware, view EBS as a thumb drive or a hard drive plugged in a computer. It's 1-to-1, right? Now, this is great. This is great. They proved it out. They showed that it could work. It does work. Problem is,
It also seems, David, like this would be a good way for a customer who's building this in their own data center or in their own available VMs that they had.
absolutely. And that's pretty much the model. These are just easier software defined abstractions of something that you would spin up on-prem on a bare metal server, to be honest. And
Right.
it's great because you pay for what you use. You're not pre-provisioning, pre-over provisioning. And if you don't like it, you turn it off and you stop paying for it. That's great.
Yeah, but then I can see your point, right? If this is successful and there's 20 million, 30 million, potential students that are going to want to do some research, and
Right.
all these colleges are competing for these students. I can see where, like you point out there on the right, where you may have some productivity issues around scaling and
Sure.
et cetera. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that. What type of issues as you grow did this customer see?
Yeah, so the scaling one is really important because it's not just scaling horizontally in terms of handling load and demand. There's certainly mitigations that you could put in front of that around caching aggressively on the edge, but the big problem really was that the logic was very vertical. So imagine this slice through the stack is specific for University A. Now, you want to add another university. That university doesn't have any data on this EBS volume. You can't add custom calculations. You can't add custom logic in that EC2 server and just say, now we can handle this university and these special edge cases and all that. So it's not just the load and the horizontal scaling, it's also availability. It's not in multiple AZs because again, there's no load balancer. It's direct to an EC2 instance. There's security issues with patching the EC2. Are you rotating your SSH keys? Updating the data? How do you do that? Do you SSH in and then like hard update the EBS thing and then detach and attach? It was kind of a nightmare. Also cost. This one instance was costing about $144 a month.
Okay.
Right. This is an
Yeah.
M4. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Not a small instance.
Yeah,
And
not.
that's one of our principles around cost is we only want our customers to spend dollars that they're going to use and not $1 more. So
Absolutely.
it's really important.
Yeah.
So, so it sounds like this customer has a success problem, right?
Exactly.
They have a situation where people are using something that they created that's hard to scale. It's
Yep.
cost inflexible. The design is bespoke and hard to scale horizontally as well. And
Right.
then I think you also hit on a little bit around the security ramifications of a design like this as well.
Certainly.
So, what did you guys do? What did CleanSlate do? What did you guys do to
S-
make this problem turn into a solution?
So as I mentioned before, CleanSlate is all in on AWS, and part of being all in on AWS is leaning into the cloud, adopting new principles, even if they're a little confusing at first, given traditional IT backgrounds. We leaned into the concept of what if we took this entire problem and just turned it inside out and flipped it on its head? And we did. And we did that leveraging an entirely serverless solution. Every single part was converted to be serverless. So uh, we do that. We go in, we listen to problems, we say, hey, this is a pain point, this is a pain point. We try to look at like, what's the root problem of this thing? And the root problem was really tied around that EC2 custom logic, bespoke logic, and that data storage problem. So we thought, how could we do that? And we came up with a solution that I think works perfectly.
Yeah, I think you're proving a good point here, and that the journey never ends when you move to cloud. It's a Herculean effort to get to cloud, and then once you have an application on cloud, the important part is looking at that application stack and trying to rethink ways that you build it that can allow you to optimize costs, improve scale, and allow for flexibility as the business grows.
That's right. Hitting that finish line to be, quote, in the cloud is actually just your starting line.
Right. Yeah. And I really like what you're going to share with us next, and then the demo that you're going to show at the end here around some of that new innovative cloud first approach around, some of the serverless technology that you might not think of when you
Yeah.
think of cloud. So maybe you could walk us through kind of what it looked like after you solve these business problems, these technical problems, and then walk us through that demo of a serverless component.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get into our after here. Close this just so it's bigger. Okay, so we didn't really change the level of components as far as introducing too much complexity, but what we did is we took a look at each particular component and said, how could we map this to something that would be serverless, more maintainable, things that we don't have to worry about? So what we did is instead of having the server rendered Django and Nginx stack, what we did is we separated it into a single page application with React that's simply making API calls. That application has a whole CI/CD process handled by AWS Amplify, connected up to a source repository, set up a couple of build environments, dev, test, prod,
Right.
automatic CDN, SSL, Route 53 integration, all handled for you. Done. Couple of clicks. So that handles that aspect for how does the world reach this? Now, how does this thing contact to get its data? It's a single page application, right? It's not rendered with the data. We used API Gateway. API Gateway let us set up a couple of routes for this client application to fetch in and say, hey, get me information about this school. Cool. I got information about the school. Now I want information specific to the major, the school, the predicted income. Let me make another request in. All of that is going through a couple of specialized lambdas that have some logic that know how to go find data that's sitting in an S3 bucket, and S3 is also a serverless service, specifically S3 Select.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see some of the front end middleware and back end applications here, but tell me more. I think tell me more about this S3 Select, because that just seems like storage to me.
Yeah, S3 Select technically is storage, but it's also a built-in serverless web server. People don't generally think of it that way. And being that it is a serverless web server, S3 Select is a way for you to, instead of, let's imagine you had a semi-structured data object like JSON, CSV, Apache Parquet, that could be large, coming from a log system or a custom bespoke data, like in our client's case, around from the actuaries and data scientists, they're putting together these Excel exports that say, these things map up to these predicted values. Well, you don't want to fetch that entire thing. You really, really don't. Because for one, there's time, there's cost, the Lambda might time out, the client doesn't even care about most of that stuff. But what S3 Select lets you do is trim down and slice through the data in the object itself to get back only what you want using a SQL-like syntax, just like you're querying a database, but serverless.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds pretty easy. I mean, the old way I would have done this is probably try to dump everything into an S3 bucket and then use Athena to try to run queries on the data in a separate process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you could think of this as a simplified, scaled down Athena that is very focused on being easy to use with no setup and completely serverless.
Cool.
Athena, depending on the size of your processing, might end up costing a bit more and introduce complexity. And in this case, we want to keep complexity as low as possible.
So, David, now, this is TechView, and we do like to take difficult things and make them simple, but we also, like to demo and show people what that actually looked like.
Absolutely.
Are you prepared to show us how simple this complex problem is?
I sure am.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get the actual AWS console. This is the proof is in the pudding. Now, what I've done here is there is a publicly available data set, and there's going to be instructions on how to get this data set for yourself in a repo that's going to be linked down in the description of the YouTube video. So no worries about that. What we end up with is a bunch of CSVs. This is describing New York City taxi data all the way back to 2009. I simply did a S3, I created a bucket and I did an S3 copy over to this account that I actually have access to.
So each CSV is a separate month?
Every single one is a month of a year. Yeah, 2009
Okay.
January. And you can see that some of these file sizes, 2.4 gigs. So there's a lot of trips going on.
Yeah.
You'll also notice from just a cursory view that sometimes the size varies and sometimes the size has pretty dramatic drop-offs. This one in particular, kind of around the mid 2016s. What do you think that might have been caused by? About 2016, public taxis.
Oh yeah. Okay. Probably with the disruption of some of the rideshare application
Maybe
services.
a little bit of Uber and Lyft coming in starts.
Okay.
They're having fewer trips with competition, and then you'll notice
Right.
an even further drop-off right around March of 2020. What happened around March 2020?
Yeah, that one's pretty well known, right?
Right.
I can see where you're pointing around
Yeah.
the global pandemic and the impact it had on this particular industry. That's amazing.
And that was just from
happened.
doing a scroll of the file sizes of the trips. There's no Redshift was not involved in making this observation. So moving on with the demo, what I did is because there are limitations to doing things interactively in the console with S3 Select. They say hey, don't query a file larger than this and things like that because it's the web timeouts and whatnot. So let's go with the very, very smallest one I can find. You can see it's about 20.7 meg. So you can either click on the object itself to go into properties of the object, or you can simply select the object in the checkbox. And if it's going to do that, let me refresh. Of course, I last authenticated since we started the call, and AWS is going to be like, you still there? All right, hang on. So
Yeah.
back down here. Yeah, security, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go here. We can click on this and then a drop down actions. There's open, the total size, all this, but look at this one. Query with S3 Select. Just click that. Takes you right into the object query interface, S3 Select. So here's the path to the object. It's giving you the size. Our format, it already detected the format was CSV, but you can see it supports CSV, JSON, Apache Parquet, whatever your delimiter is. In this case, it's comma. Any compression, fair warning, if you copy the New York City taxi data, it's not gzip compressed. Just a heads up, be aware of what you're copying over and what you're doing. I chose intelligent tiering for this one just because,
Yeah, that's
you know,
smart.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so down here, I'll get this out of the way too, and maybe I'll bump this up a little bit. So down here, it's already giving you an interface called the SQL query, and it's giving you one that you can kind of start from, where you're just going to say, give me everything in this thing, limit it to 5, so it's fast. Let's just run it. Let's see what we even get back in this thing. Do the thing. Oh, here we go. So this is kind of ugly, but it really is the raw stuff. So we could go to formatted, and now it's kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet to me. We got columns. They match to stuff, which, like, if you look at, like, I don't know what some of this stuff means, but
Tip amount. Somebody was kind of cheap there. They did give a $0 tip. That's
yeah, amen. I know. But you could see, like, okay, now looks like just limit 5, but if I just did a select star and I didn't do anything else with it, it's going to be returning me a 20.7 meg file. In my Lambda, what would happen if I'm not really wanting to do that? So let's just see, without the limit, how many objects there even are in this thing. Individual objects. We'll just go ahead and type this. Don't worry about commenting stuff out. Your last line that you enter will be the one that you execute. All right, looks like 237,000 trips were returned. Okay, so now what we can do, take this out and run this again, and I'll point something out. If you notice, these ones with passenger count, 0, right? That's probably an internal taxi type thing. I'm not really interested in that kind of thing. So that we can maybe filter this out. But first, before we filter it out, let's make sure we get only the objects we're interested in. Now, there's a syntax for this, and I'll put it up here. The s dot underscore, the underscore 4 is the column you want, and it starts at 1. For programmers out there, this is column 1, not column 0. And I'm going to say I want 4, 5, and 11, I think. Yeah, 4, 5, and 11. And I'm going to run that. And you could see immediately I'm going to reduce the amount of data returned and the time that it takes to return it, just by limiting what I select back. So what I've done is I've selected the passenger count, the trip distance, and the fare amount. I noticed in perusing through the data, the fare amount could be negative. And that's another one of those internal, like, taxi type things.
right.
I want to exclude that. Well, we were talking about this being a SQL-like syntax. So what if you could use where clauses? As it turns out, you can. So here's what this would look like. I'm going to get those same columns. I'm going to get it from the object, and I'm going to say where my passenger count is more than 0, and the trip distance is greater than 2, and the fare amount is positive. And I'm not putting a limit on it this time. You ready to see what we get?
Yeah, let's hit it. See, let's roll. Nice. Come on.
Running.
Okay.
Here we go. Now we got all this stuff. Now it just cut all those records down from 237,000 some to about 3,300.
Right.
And it sped it up. So we had a total reduction. The size that we saved was, the original file size was 21 point something meg. We saved 20.7 megs. And the original retrieval time of selecting everything was over 3 seconds. And now we have shaved off 2.9 seconds. Now,
Yeah.
the beauty of it, though, we were operating on a 21 meg file. You remember when I showed you earlier that file that was 2.4 gig, 2.6 gig? That's
Right. Yeah.
definitely one that you want to shave down. Yeah.
Right. Massive amounts of data. And I think the other point, back to kind of the business problem, right, and the fact that you were able to take this, architecture and turn it inside out and build it serverless, is, the compute you paid for was the time it took to run the SQL query to when it ended and it stored the data. So it's event-driven compute for SQL queries, which is just, allows developers to just do what they want to do, which is
Right.
run the queries, get the data, and move on, not have to ask for
Right.
permission to go build a server to pull data.
Yep.
So powerful
And
stuff here.
the other cool benefit about moving this from that basically hard drive plugged into an EC2 instance is the way that they would have to update the data before is they would have to let a data scientist have SSH access into a running EC2 instance to update data.
Right.
Well, now what we can do is we can do isolation of access where the application only, not the general public, the application only via Lambda execution roles can read from the data. And then specifically only the data scientists could have put access into the S3 bucket. And now what we do when we want to add a new school, drop a new CSV file in there and make another Route 53 alias. Done.
Yeah,
That's it.
allows you to scale quickly and efficiently. I wish we
Absolutely.
had more time to go into this deeper, but I think the next step for people that are going to watch this is, is to go build this yourself, right? We'll
Yeah.
make available the GitHub repository. The New York
Yep.
taxi cab data is public, and you should be able to go, try this yourself. And I would encourage you to do that, and then share with us your experiences. Did you learn something new? Was it beneficial? Show us what you built. So
What cool new thing did you come up with?
yeah, we would be interested with that as well. So David, I just, really on behalf of everyone at AWS and Do Hard Things TechView, I want to thank you and CleanSlate for taking the time to share your story about yourself, your company, and what you've built here with this customer. And I know it takes a lot of time and effort, and hopefully people that watch this really get a lot out of it. So if you like what you saw today, give us thumbs up on our YouTube video, share your own experiences.
Hit the subscribe, like it, share it, ding that bell, and let us know what you built.
Again, yeah, great. All right, well, thank you very much. And on behalf of Do Hard Things, have a wonderful afternoon, evening.
You as well.